Hello, Dr. McLeskey, and thank you for being here today. Before we begin, I am going to provide a little bit of context for those that are watching. My name is Andra Davis, and I'm an associate professor at the University of Portland School of Nursing and an ELNEC co-investigator through a Cambia-funded grant where I'm working with Dr. Betty Farrell to advance palliative care education and strengthen the nursing workforce in caring for those that have serious illness and their families. A major part of this work is to facilitate networking and hopefully co-create a regional model of excellence in palliative care education, with a particular focus in the region where I live, Washington, Oregon, Utah, and Idaho, that region. I actually live in Washington. And on our first regional call of this group, some folks, different faculty shared innovative things that they were doing at their schools, and other folks on the call really wanted to learn more about this area of nursing care and how people are integrating this into their curriculum. So we thought that one helpful idea would be to highlight the work of educators that are leading palliative care and end-of-life education at their schools, and maybe provide some examples to other schools for how they're doing that may serve to align with ACN Essentials, as we're all trying to work on the sphere of hospice, palliative, and supportive care, which, let's see if I can switch over to this slide here. So here's a picture of the essentials for spheres, and you can see that hospice and palliative and supportive care are one of the spheres this time for accreditation. So we are all really familiar, Dr. McLeskey and myself, and many of you out there, of the challenges of integrating new material into saturated curriculum. And really our goal through this is to help support each other and to minimize the burden, and we've all walked down that road. So let me now introduce Dr. McLeskey and say that she brings not only years of experience as a nurse, she's a doctorally prepared DNP. She also has been trained as a chaplain, a geriatric educator, an ELNEC trainer in the geriatric track. She is double boarded in geriatrics and hospice and palliative care, and has served as an Alzheimer director in an assisted living facility, worked with countless folks on QI projects through her work at the University of Utah, and currently is an associate professor at the University of Utah College of Nursing. She is a fellow in the National Gerontological Nursing Association, and caring for and teaching about caring for older adults, especially those with Alzheimer's disease and those at the end of life, is a passion of hers. So Dr. McLeskey, you have a long history of working with students around palliative and hospice end-of-life care, and integrating the ELNEC undergrad curriculum, which goes back to 2016, I think, and you have previously published and presented this in the past. But let's spend a little bit of time hearing from you about the ways that at the University of Utah you have worked to integrate palliative care education at your school. So we'll just start with maybe anything you want to say about that, how you have worked with the undergraduate ELNEC curriculum in your school.
Not a smooth road in getting this started, as I know from many schools and have heard from a number of people, that getting it moved forward with new curriculum into this curriculum that we're already in. But there were some things along the road that were helpful. So some of the steps that I had gone through was presenting what the ELNEC course was to the baccalaureate curriculum. And I had to go back a couple times. I was told no a couple times. And then I think on my third try, I went back and presented it once again. And the faculty was a little bit more lenient. in listening to me and being open to having it in the curriculum. But there were some barriers. They had said, well, let's just have it as a pilot. And let's just have it as an optional course for the nursing students. And at first I was a little bit discouraged, but thought, okay, I can work with that. And so the first year it was presented as a pilot, and we were in one of the 4 states where Cambia had provided it for us to just see how we were going to work with it. And as I presented it to the students, and I went into a number of the classrooms and presented it to each of our semester students and told them about the program. I visited with faculty too on options of where, you know, and getting interest in this ELNEC because I found that, you know, the more we could educate our faculty on it, the more interest that they would have. At the end of that first year, I was very pleased in collecting data that I was able to get 66% of the nursing student body to take this optional course. At the same time, I had collaborated with some other authors, and we, the PI for that research was visiting with our students who had taken the ELNEC and had done some focus groups. And from that, it came out that the students said we must have this information. It was really important for us to have. And so it actually was having it as an optional course, having the students take it, having them give feedback, and they went to the faculty and said, this is information that we really need to have. And so with that, again, I went and visited with different faculty to see where this course, which is that 6 one-hour online modules, could fit into our program. And I had the faculty that was teaching Foundations of Nursing say, this is important. I think that we might be able to put it in our course there. And so I sat with her and we kind of figured out how can we not make this a burden, but be able to put it into the students' curriculum. And so what ended up was it found a place in first semester nursing students' coursework in their foundational course. And it, you know, that being that basic course where these students are learning all about nursing, we aligned the modules according to what they were already hearing about. They were talking about communication. How do they communicate with their patients? How do they communicate with other staff members? And so that module on communication fell right into that. There were other areas where they were looking at chronically ill patients and how do you deal with them? So the suffering symptoms aligned well in that. And then looking at pain management, that module on pain management, it fell into that. So within the course, there are the 6 modules, and they're given as an assignment for the students. So we have 2 classes that come in each year, one in the spring, one in the fall, and they have this on their schedule. The classes are split into 2, so there's 32 that meet in Foundations on Thursday, 32 that meet on Friday. And when these students have gotten this assignment, I go in and debrief on the Thursday and Friday with these students because I felt like you can't just give this information to the students, but they need to talk about it and discuss about it and how they can apply it to their evolving nursing career that they're doing. So this has worked out well. So
can I just interject something here? I think that this is a really great example of how you can take the material and integrate it into a course where potentially the faculty that is teaching that course may not feel like they're an expert in that area. But then when it comes time to process and developmentally where the students are at, that material, to bring in the expert and have you be part of that debriefing period.
Yes, and that's worked out really well. I only take 15 to 20 minutes on that Thursday and Friday with the students and just review the objectives for that particular module. Ask them about experiences. Some of these students have had experiences with individuals dying, have maybe volunteered or worked as a CNA in hospice. And so again, they're engaging and talking about what their experiences are, because they're very anxious to share their experiences, which has been neat. And then I always end the session with, what are the takeaways? What's the most important thing of this module that you will take with you, or just really stood out? What did you learn? And they're very engaging in being very surprised about different things that have happened. So that's been very good. At the end of the 6 modules, and we do them in order, the 6th module is taking care of that imminently dying patient. And so the week after we debrief on that and they've done that module, they do a sim, which they can apply what they've learned about taking care of that imminently dying patient. So in the sim lab, they all go through and participate, applying those principles to what they've learned, which has really been good. So one of the things I always emphasize to these students, because they're not thinking, I'm going to be a hospice nurse, or I'm going to be a geriatric nurse, but really emphasizing, this is information, this is content that you can transition to each setting that you find yourself in and a desire to work in.
And as a application for lots of folks across lots of settings, across the age span even, when you think about people that are diagnosed with chronic, serious, life-threatening illnesses and caring for their families. So a good reminder that it's really not just about the end of life, but also across the trajectory of an illness, a serious illness. Skills that they'll use lots of places.
Yes, and that's been a really important thing, because they see that they're gonna with the blinders on, well, I want to be a pediatric or a neonatal nurse, and and just be able to give that message each time that we do a module, that here's how you can apply it.
Mm-hmm. In your example, it sounds like all of the modules have easily and nicely fit, and you got faculty support to do that early in their education, which is wonderful. And then they finish that up with a simulation. But you also mentioned, I think, that later you see these students again. Is that right? Later in their development, in their educational process.
Yeah, I'm fortunate to teach in the clinical 3rd semester rotation, and in my rotation, my students go out and they spend time with home health and hospice nurses, and it's just been wonderful to see the application of these ELNEC concepts. Many times at the end of the day, the students will come back and we'll talk about what they experienced, how their day was. And one of the threads throughout the ELNEC course is that presence that we have with individuals, that we, don't have to be a chatty Cathy, and we don't have to do all these things for people, but being with these individuals. And that is one of the things that's really stood out, especially in this last fall and summer rotations that I've had with these students. They've come back to me and say, I've just sat with, Mrs. Smith, and just held her hand. And I sat there for about 15 minutes with her, and we just talked, or I just, was with her when there was a dressing change, or, somebody talking with them. So it's really been wonderful to see, again, the application of what they're learning in the ELNEC to be carried over into the different settings that these students find themselves.
And it's also nice, I think, that I'm hearing that you started as a pilot, and now all of the students are getting this. It's been integrated such that 100% of your nursing students are getting this content, which is really where we hope everybody goes in that direction. I think as we kind of begin to wrap up this interview, if there's any last thing you would like to say to those out there that are maybe not as comfortable in this sphere of care, to encourage them? And I also would welcome, I think both of us would welcome folks that are interested in one-on-one conversation, that we'll leave our information at the end for those that are interested in contacting. As she mentioned, she's in Utah, so if there are any listeners up in that area, Dr. McLeskey is here for you. So you want to give us some final thoughts?
I know it's not an easy journey, but there are certain things that I know I've gone through that I think would be helpful to just be able to talk about. I know everybody's school is unique. Everybody's faculty are uniquely made up. But I think there are many ways that it can be implemented into your schools. And Andrea, I would be happy to speak with anybody that because I know it's not a quick fix. You just can't dot the I and say, okay, well, we're going to have it. There's work that needs to be done behind the scene, that just talking with faculty, making a case, and again, showing where, maybe the University of Utah, we're not perfect, but we've been able to put this in place, and showcasing that maybe to your school would be helpful.
We have lots of examples of different ways that the modules have been integrated threaded throughout different semesters too. I want to also just let people know that we'll be having a webinar at the end of January, and it will be up on the website here as well. If you're interested in how to look at the AACN essentials in light of the care statements, the palliative care end-of-life statements, and how that sort of crosswalks as you consider accreditation at your school. We're also going to have more sessions with folks. How are different teaching strategies that you use? Dr. McLeskey has shared one, the really important element of debriefing, and how that's important to how you use the material. And we'll also have some people sharing other ways that they're doing outcome measurement. How are you evaluating student knowledge and competence around these particular domains of care? So that's all coming, and thank you for your time today. And we look forward to working with you in our 4-state region as well.